I would say between share of voice and sentiment, those are very important because share of voice, like I said, it doesn't really focus on how many articles, but the mentions as well. And how many articles you get in the media versus your mentions are two different things, right? You may be mentioned a million times versus your article may be posted only 500 times. So, that's very important as far as like measuring data because it also helps you see like, okay, we're getting mentions here, so maybe we need to try this approach a little different in this aspect of versus, oh, we're getting hits here and it's not really translating into anything. I got my bachelor's and master's in strategic communications. I did like my thesis on how social media and new technology enhanced the college football recruiting process. I definitely wanted it to be tailored to sports. However, once I finished my degree, I ended up working for a PR agency in New York, um, primarily focused on the ad tech industry. So I had clients such as Samsung TV, Optimal, um, uh, TransUnion, and a few others. So basically, that led me to, while I was doing that, I was also doing an internship with USA Triathlon for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. During that time, I got to interview like Olympians and, go to different events and actually like run social media. And yeah, it was great. So that actually led me to bigger opportunities in the sports industry, which started with the Los Angeles Clippers, where I was just doing like game day marketing stuff. And then I ended up getting the Los Angeles Football Club, which is the Major League Soccer team in the area. So I was working for them, which they ended up referring me to the PR manager position at Angel City Football Club, which is the new expansion team in the National Women's Soccer League. So it's been like a trickling effect where one opportunity has led to the next, and just all of the hard work and education that I put in just starting to pay off. And um, that's really it. I use data a lot because we have a lot, well, especially with our team, because we are a celebrity based owned team, majority women owned team. So it's really interesting because we're doing a lot of media for not only our team but for our partnerships that we're starting to create for the first time. And a lot of our like investors, we who are celebrities, so a lot of times we're pitching stories for them or monitoring stories for them. So it's really important to capture all of that, right? So what I mainly do is I create recap decks with data. Sorry. So I create recap decks with data, and pretty much I use Meltwater and TVIs to not only monitor print and online, but broadcast and radio. So we're pretty much covering all bases. We want to get like anything from market value, TV market value, local TV market value, national TV market value, down to print and online, share of voice, the whole nine. So it's really intriguing, but it's a lot because we're trying to get to that common ground where not only are we promoting our soccer side, right? We're promoting our inaugural season, we're promoting our ticket sales, we're promoting all this stuff, but we're also coming out with a lot of different partnerships with Cedar Sinai, with Heineken, with Chevy, with it's so many different things that we have going on. And we're a really community-based organization, so we're doing a lot of stuff with Los Angeles LGBT Community Center, the public school districts, the whole nine. So a lot of data needs to be developed to figure out, hey, where do we lack at? Are we lacking in the partnership area when it comes to promoting stuff? Are we lacking in the community aspect where, we're pushing our initiatives and stuff like that, but we're not really getting the media? So it's really important to measure data in that sense because we're an expansion team and we're also new on the corporate end as well, you know? So definitely by using Meltwater and TVIs to, cover all aspects from broadcasting, radio to print and online. And, obviously we want to get the share of voice. We want to get like the AVE, like the total market value. So a few anecdotes I would say is, first, I use Meltwater because I feel like that is a great platform to pretty much monitor what kind of media is coming in. We also use the dashboard. So that's pretty much just finding the right templates to share with our investors and our shareholders. So a lot of times we're monitoring the share of voice. That's the total number of articles versus mentions or the sentiments. And I think that is really important because, it determines like your positive versus your negative, like how many positive articles you have versus negative articles. So I think that's really important. And then also you're also monitoring like for as far as broadcast and radio, which is totally different from print. That's why we have to use TVIs because you're monitoring different things. So when you're monitoring broadcast and print, when you're doing your data, you're monitoring, like I said, your share of voice, your total mentions, your sentiments. But when you're monitoring TVIs, you're monitoring total market value from a local international standpoint. You're also monitoring, the total number of hits. And I think it's very important because it helps you measure your data in a different aspect, especially with us being an expansion team. So another anecdote that I would like to add in, as far as once you gather all that data, it helps you measure or monitor, like, on the partnership side, if we're pitching and we're getting media on the partnership side, but on the community side, it's not really translating the same, then we know like maybe we have to use certain keywords or, there's different tactics that show up in the report that say, hey, maybe we're using this, or maybe another team had more information to speak on this week and they kind of like overburied us. So I think data is really important in that aspect, and why we use it so much is because of the fact that once you're able to gather all those numbers, you're able to measure your process and if it actually is effective. When I first started out in the PR agency and I was working in the ad tech industry, it was really hard for me to measure data at first because I came in at a very rough time. Not only was it during the pandemic, but also, it was like the beginning of the streaming wars with like cable versus SVOD and AVOD, which is like, streaming on demand, like you have Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, different stuff like that versus actual cable TV. And it was really hard to measure data at that point because it's like I didn't really know much about the ad tech industry, especially being so sports driven in all of my like education and all of like my studies and research. And I come to the ad tech industry and it was like horrible. I didn't know how to measure anything or just my method of pitching. But then that's when I was introduced to Meltwater. And that's when I was able to like see the numbers and actually see like, okay, these keywords are good for this. And, when you're pitching to the media, or when you're newsjacking, we call it, where you're basically, you might see an article that is similar to something you're pitching and you reach out to that journalist, it's very important that you use, a measurable method. And I think that was my challenge, is finding that balance of the measurable method of reaching out to the journalist or reporter and pitching the right thing or using the right words. So I think data helped me with finding those keywords that really were effective, and also like noticing, okay, well, these articles that we're pitching are coming out with a positive sentiment versus these articles that we're putting out, they're kind of being perceived in a negative way. So you get to learn that balance and how you're able to shift things. And I think that was like the core of me learning data. I would definitely say share a voice.
Okay.
But I'm also really stern on, you know, your AVE, like your value, your market value, right? Like, or potential market value, because I think with broadcast and radio, the numbers are accurate. You know, it's like an accurate number as far as like, oh, your local market value may be 1.1 million. But when you're working with print and online, it's all projected. It's not like accurate numbers. It's all, because it's not based on the article itself, it's based on the media outlet. So it's based on, if we're talking about Forbes, it's based on how many people visited Forbes that day and potentially saw that article versus how many people actually, if we had a more accurate number, we'll be able to say, hey, these are how many people that actually view this article. So I would say between share of voice and sentiment, those are very important, because share of voice, like I said, it doesn't really focus on how many articles, but the mentions as well. And, you know, how many articles you get in the media versus your mentions are two different things, right? You may be mentioned 1 million times versus your article may be posted only 500 times. So, you know, that's very important as far as like measuring data, because it also helps you see like, okay, we're getting mentions here, so maybe we need to try this approach a little different in this aspect of versus, oh, we're getting hits here and it's not really translating into anything. We're in a society where there's more innovators, right? There's more, especially on the tech side. I feel like we'll get the opportunity where someone maybe right now drawing up the big platform that will show us accurate numbers, right? I think we're going to get to that point where we have the engineers and we have the tech savvy people to, you know, create this platform where we're able to actually monitor our data. I think another important thing is, you know, it's important to talk about third-party cookies, right? Because that's a big part of how data is measured. You know, when you go to a website, what's the first thing that pops up at the bottom? Do you accept these cookies, right? Well, that goes away. It's all gonna go away. Like Google already, they're done with it. And then you have like Apple. Well, I think Apple's done with it. Google, they were gonna stop this year, but they ended up saying we're gonna stop in 2023. And now you're at a point where people are coming out with data clouds. And that was one of the companies that I used to work with in the PR agency where I was Optimal. And at the time they were coming out with a third-party data cloud because of cookies being removed. Cookies is the reason why websites are able to get data, right? They're able to see how many visitors and where the geographics, all of that stuff. Now with that gone, people have to now make these data clouds where one company and another company can share each other's data instead of, or you don't have to share with anyone, but you'll be able to use this platform. And this is just an example of how tech savvy people are now, where they're saying, okay, third-party cookies is gone, but we're not going anywhere. We're going to find a way to overcome this. And I think that's where we're at with media measurement. You know, we're at the standstill where it's like, okay, this is where we're at. This is what they're giving us, but we're not satisfied with it. And I'm sure there will be someone with brains and a genius mindset that will come in and be creative and create that. And I think we need it, because how will media outlets measure data without without cookies now?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, what's the method now to that? So I think it's kind of like a midlife crisis, if you want to think of it in that sense, because once third-party cookies is gone, now media outlets are scrambling to find ways to provide data, right? You know, those are really the basic ones. We do, like, you know, with Meltwater, you have your earned media measurement dashboard and you have a classic. dashboard. So the earned media is obviously, it gives you more. It gives you your mentions, your total potential news reach, your sentiments, top performing news content, and I think top performing news content is also important, and as well as like the mentions trend by source type, total publications by volume, total publications by reach. So you're able to see which publications, media is all about building, it's all about building relationships with reporters and journalists. So you get to see those relationships transcribed to data, Los Angeles Times, we're always talking with them, we're always working with them. Well, they've mentioned us or they've posted our articles 10 times this month, stuff like that. So I think that's important as well. Just seeing the volume of the media outlets, like who's posting you, how many times you've been posted by them opposed to other competitors. I think that's important as well so that we understand the type of relationships we're building. So I would say outside of the share of voice, the sentiments, I would say like understanding your publications and their potential reach and how many times ESPN posted you, how many times did the Daily Mail or LA Times, and really hone in on those relationships as well. I think also top organizations. So with us being in the National Women's Soccer League, obviously we're competing with 10 other clubs or 11 other clubs, right? And we're also competing with the league as far as news. The league is posting news all the time. Other clubs are posting news all the time. And then we're posting news all the time. We even have clubs that mention us, like we're playing San Diego on September 17th. And they're mentioning us leading up to that, versus the NWSL. They mention one of our players in their best of starting 11 for the month. So it's just like competing with different things. So I would say those are other important things you should be including in your reports or monitoring outside of the actual content. And like I said, share of voice, mentions, and sentiments. Well, I would have to say Copa and Helena, which was our latest match against the Mexican women's national team. And it's like a new branded thing that we're doing where we're annually going to play this team, right, every year. And being as though this is our inaugural season, it was our inaugural match, with this being like a whole different branded thing. Like it's not Angel City FC versus Mexico women's national team. It's the two teams combined to create this branded Copa and Helena annual match, which we hope that, builds into a huge tournament of other teams coming in and playing and everything like that. And I think the biggest thing for us was getting the Mexico women's national team fans to have the opportunity to see them play, but also have the opportunity to come to Banc of California Stadium and learn about Angel City and learn, how we do things. So I think the campaign around that was amazing to me. It was amazing to be a part of. I don't think I've been a part of anything that has been such creative and thorough. And I think from a media standpoint, it was really excellent to be involved in a media campaign that was not only local and nationally, but international, where we have players from Mexico that have played on Tigres and so forth, that have played with some of these Mexico women's national team players, former teammates, stuff like that. And then, I think it was also important because we're a new expansion team, right? And this is the first time that anybody in the NWSL has played a national team. So all of this stuff I think was important, and we got excellent coverage. We're getting hits in Fox, we're getting hits in ABC, CBS. We had TUDN from Univision Televisa Networks. They broadcast the whole thing, and it was just amazing to see. But I think it was amazing to be a part of. I'm actually doing the numbers for that right now, creating a report for it. But from a media campaign standpoint, from the media day to the press scrum that we did pre-match to the post-match press conference. Everything, it was excellent to be a part of that, to provide photos to the media, to provide like detailed recap with quotes. And Copa Annalena had its own website, so being able to provide game notes for that, and it was just an excellent experience. And I think that was probably one of the best media campaigns that I've been a part of. Definitely building relationships, networking, connecting with other PR people, understanding their methods and picking their brains. And I think the biggest thing in the PR world in sports is, like I said, connecting with other PR sports professionals from other teams. And, these difficult times, like you said, with the recession and the pandemic we've been dealing with, and everything else, from like just the lack of media from the pandemic, trying to get that back into full form, because, in the sports PR world, we have live press conferences with people in seats, right? So we're just trying to we've been getting back to that point. I think us as a club, we've done an excellent job with that, with actually having people in seats at our press conferences. So I think we're going to get to a good place again. I think this is just a minor setback for a major comeback, right? This is not the first time we've been in a recession, but I think also monitoring previous recessions and how organizations and clubs kind of dealt with it back then, maybe monitoring the PR methods of that. So I think, like I said, it's all about networking, staying connected with journalists and reporters, most importantly, because relationships kind of fell off because of the pandemic and lack of being able to provide reporters and journalists news. So I just say, like, stay in touch with people, keep, the narrative strong, make sure that you're monitoring your data so you know how to story tell, you know how to be intentional and effective in those aspects. We work hand in hand with our marketing departments all the time. And I think, marketing is based off of, creativity and campaigning, creative campaigns. And I think PR and marketing go hand in hand, because I think from a marketing standpoint, you want to know, the events that's coming up, the events that the organization you're working with is tied to. I think it's very important to be intentional with the content we're coming out with interviewing and making sure that we're getting our players the storytelling they need, because from our end, marketing has an extremely hard job, right? They have to market not only the players but the coach, the organization itself. So if we're helping them with developing talking points, messages, different types of messaging, and just being intentional, like I said, with our PR pitching and stuff like that, making sure that we're collaborating hand in hand with them on certain things. And even if it's down to you want to push a certain merch line, or you want to push a certain interview that we have with a player, then it's very important for us to reach out to our media contacts and say, hey, our team developed this excellent story on Megan Reid. Can we, push this to you to see if you, interested in posting this or interested in sharing it with your newsroom? So, like I said, marketing and PR work hand in hand for that aspect of, especially in sports. We're pushing content, we're pushing merch, we're pushing ticket sales. And on our end, we need to be able to develop the messaging for that. We need to be able to push the messaging to the reporters, while on their end, they're pushing the production and the creativity aspect. So it works hand in hand, and we're able to help each other out in many ways. It's very important to everything works hand in hand. So your relationships with reporters and journalists, down to your media measurement, down to your pitching and your your press release writing down to collaborating with marketing, community partnerships, ticket sales, ticketing department, I'm sorry, and many other aspects of it. It's just very important to make sure your messaging is aligned with all of those departments. Make sure that you are pushing the correct storyline, the correct narrative, and then also going back, measuring that data, and then coming up with a solution for what we can do better next time, right? I think, use data to your advantage, right? Don't just say, okay, these are numbers. No, these are actual measurements of what you've done. Like whether it was in your hands, you could control it or not. This is what you've done. This is just the number side of your production. So I would say take advantage of that. If you have a lot of people don't use this to their advantage, and they're not able to really, they still excel the organization or the brand, but not to their potential because they're not taking those numbers very, very serious. And I think that's the most important thing. Data is real, data is important, and data, helps us build the brand, maintain a brand, and continue to grow a brand. So I would just say, use data to your advantage. Be intentional with your approach. Make sure you're finding solutions if you see something negative. Make sure your stakeholders are aware of the good and the bad. It's not always about providing good numbers. Mm-hmm. Providing bad numbers can help shift their mindset too, right? So making sure your head of departments, the CEO, whoever the stakeholders and shareholders are, make sure they understand it's not always going to be good, but what we're doing is we're working to get it to that point, right? We want everything to be good. We don't want any bad articles. We don't want any bad or negative reviews or outlooks on the article. So, I think, like I said, just take it to your advantage. Use the numbers to be more intentional in your PR approach.